pretty much I knew my health was failing. I mean, I was doing stupid shit while I was drinking. I was not there as a husband. Our business was doing bad. I mean, my life is 180 degrees different from when I was drunk. Not only my health is better, our business is better, my relationship with my wife and kids are better. I mean, everything has changed. My financial situation, I mean, the whole 9 yards. You know as much as I did how much that has to do with sobriety first.
Okay. Duce Raymond, welcome to the American Glutton podcast.
Eth, it's so great to see you. Thank you so much for having me on. This is amazing.
Bro, I'm thrilled to have you on. I watch your Instagram and so I have so many angles to talk to you about here, but your content is dangerous. I found myself braising meat the other day simply because I was looking at your page for too long.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's something that I am super passionate about. I love food. I love barbecue. And we started really diving into making content, during the pandemic and kind of went all in on social media to raise awareness for our catering business and our Duce's Wild barbecue sauces and rubs brand. And it's been awesome. We get so much great feedback. It is so awesome to correspond with you over Instagram. You watching all the recipes. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, I sent my daughter one recently. You made brisket tacos and you made a sauce with nuts and chilies and I mean my mind was exploding,
Yes.
I can't wait to make that.
Dude, the salsa matcha is no joke, and it's got so much flavor, and it's over the top. I had it the first time a few months ago, and I was like, I'm making this for a video for sure, because it's just got so much of that deep earthiness from the peppers and then that nuttiness from the sesame seeds and peanuts, and it's amazing. It's really good. It's not low calorie, unfortunately.
No, I don't see a lot of stuff you make that's low calorie, which really leads me to my next. Okay, my path I thought was very unusual, and I think it was unusual because I became obsessed with food when I was dieting. While I was dieting, I just watched food in 2002. I sat and just stared at food TV. It was like the sublimation. I can't eat anything, so I'm just going to watch other people eat and make food. And then I did a lot of traveling that was food-centric traveling, to watch my kids eat this. My wife and I went to China to eat duck at Luquan Roast Duck, where Anthony Bourdain said it was the best Peking duck. That's insane to do that.
Right.
I never would have done that had I just been here eating whatever I wanted. So the fact that you have lost as much weight as you've lost and still been surrounded, your business is thriving, you're still making really delicious food. That is wild to me.
Yes. And it's, our stories are similar for sure, because I'm definitely, have an addictive past. I'm in a program as well to keep me away from drugs and alcohol. And the food is a whole nother addiction. And my sister and I were just talking about it this morning. And there's so many addictive tendencies with food. When you want to eat something you probably shouldn't be, or, if it's not on your plan, it's a hiding situation. Yeah. There's so much, mental gymnastics that go around with it. But I get that question all the time. Is how are you around all this food and you still be able to maintain that weight loss? And it's really just when you see me eating on the videos, that's all I'm eating.
That's it.
Of that food. And the rest of the time it's, I've gone down the path similar to you, is every type of diet I've tried, and really have come to realize through content like yours, through other podcasts, it sounds funny to say, but the bodybuilders really haven't figured out, so I've gotten down to that where, I'm on a similar low fatish program and kind of watch what I'm eating most of the time. And then those are my cheat or treat days or treats, when I'm making a video. Of course, you got to take a bite for the camera, and it's delicious.
Well, yeah, but also you got to know what it tastes like. Like,
Oh, yeah.
if it needs more salt, more acid, if it's not spicy enough, like if you're cooking it. And by the way, I cook an awful lot for my family. I'm putting everything in my mouth. It's going in my mouth at some point.
Oh, for sure. And that's, part of the balance of everything is when I'm cooking, I'm the same way. I'm eating as I'm cooking because I'm tasting it so much and I want it to taste good. That's like, as a chef and just me as kind of a people pleaser by nature, I want every bite that you have of mine to be like, dude, this is amazing. Like, I want that reaction. And so I'm going to make sure it tastes amazing for sure while I'm cooking.
Yeah. When did you get sober?
So I've been sober for 8 years, and I tried a couple times before that, but I've been sober for 8 years now. And that's really when my mind shifted on taking care of my health and, everything, when you're in the depths of everything, how, it's your business, it's your relationships, it's everything is going downhill. And I really took a inner look on everything that was going on and started to change a lot of things in my life. And that's when I started to get more into health and nutrition. And then it was the which diet is going to work for me. And
yeah,
I got to tell you the story about, because I think you would appreciate it. So when I was it was like COVID-y time, I was getting very lean and I was walking a lot. And then everything in my business shut down except for the little restaurant. So we could still run carry out barbecue and stuff like that. So we just had like 2 managers and myself. So I was like doing real work when I was there, putting those cases of brisket away, washing dishes. I was moving all day, plus doing 2 hours of cardio, listening to podcasts about how everyone's going to die from COVID. So I was like moving all day, and I was on isogenics, which is like 2 shakes, fast one day and 1 meal a day. So it was like 900 calories or something like that. I got as lean as I ever gotten, 173 pounds, but I still didn't like the way I looked. And then because of all the content out there, the Dave Asbury's, all those type of people, I was convinced that if I got my body into ketosis, I could shed the rest of the fat.
Right.
So after this like 900 calorie a day diet, I started doing keto. And that's like the fattiest part of the brisket, topped with avocado, coconut oil in my coffee. After the 2 weeks where I maybe lost a little bit of weight, I started gaining weight like crazy because I was just like shoving all this fat in my system that it was the calories just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so it took me a while to figure out that you have to just control your calories in general. And that's where I am at now. And I'm working with someone we both know, Ian, as a trainer. And yeah, he's awesome, dude. And I actually met him through your show. I reached out to him after listening to him on your show, and he's been a huge help. I've been with him for almost a year now, so it's been really good.
And you're working on nutrition with him, or nutrition and resistance training?
Yes, basically he sets up a program, nutrition program, and then we use the RP app for the training part, but he programs the workouts in there. And then we have a call once a week and to kind of go through. When you have a trainer like that, and you've done some of this, but it's almost like having a psychologist. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is the mental, what's working for me, what's not, but it's something I need to keep me accountable. It's really been helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. There was a point in my life where I was thoroughly resigned to like, I'm just going to have these long periods of struggle and weight loss, and life would be miserable, and it'd be 3 to 6 months of basically pain and fatigue. And then I would have a brief time where I enjoyed that weight loss. And then I knew like the weight's going to steadily come back. Right. Mm-hmm. And like, the bodybuilders, their scheme is very similar. It just kind of stretches it out. It makes it less extreme. You're not killing yourself to lose weight, and then you're not rapidly reaccumulating it. So I totally agree. Like that scheme that they've figured out. But then they're also the other magic in there was like the idea of maintenance, which was something I never really factored that in when I was doing the other diets. Was like, oh, a period of time where I'm just coasting and I'm still, it's still work, it's still effort, but my weight's neither going up or down. Like that was the hardest thing for me. Have you found maintenance to be tricky?
Yes, definitely. And that's kind of what I'm working on right now, like going through a full cycle with the trainer and trying to figure out that my maintenance, I've never been able to keep it true maintenance. It always creeps up a little bit, which is kind of expected to an extent, but mine goes a little bit past there. So I'm still working on it. It's a lifelong battle. Like I said, with my brain and around food. I mean, picture this. You're at the restaurant, you're on maintenance. You take out a whole brisket. You're supposed to slice off 6 ounces. That never happens. 6 ounces does not exist for me on that plate. I could get around maybe not taking the fattier cut where the burnt ends come from and slice the lean brisket, but 6 ounces never makes it on the plate. It's probably closer to a pound because it's just like, it's right there in front of you. So it's like when I'm in maintenance, ideally I'm still meal prepping and taking my chicken and rice or potatoes and vegetables with me. And it's just a little bit more. And maybe I have a little sweet treat here or a little sweet treat there. But it's hard to be like, oh, I'm not really supposed to be losing, so I'll go to the restaurant for lunch today. Well, when you're in complete control, it's hard to, really stick to it for me anyways.
No, I maintenance was way harder. The kind of the incentive of weight loss, which is something that I wanted for so long, is super helpful to keep me on a program. So then when I'm not getting that, when there's no benefit, when the benefit is just like, well, buddy, this is how you have to live for the rest of your life. If that's when that was the only benefit, it was really hard. It was, many factors harder than any diet I've ever done, simply because there is no reward system in there. There's no material result that I'm seeing,
I'm way better at losing than I am at maintenance because I love seeing that scale go down. It's just those little rewards that you get is like my brain gets triggered by that. And is it a hit of dopamine or something else? I don't know, but that's definitely something. And I'm actually in a cutting phase right now. I'm trying to get lean. I've never technically had abs, so I'm trying to get there at least one time in my life. So that's the goal. March 28th, I'll text you a picture.
Please
a shirtless
do.
guy, another shirtless guy texting you pictures. I'm sure you love it.
No, listen, can you put some fatty meat in the picture?
Yeah, okay. That's the deal.
Abs in front of or behind like a brisket or something like that.
Love it.
When did you start cooking?
So my dad is actually the chef that created Sweet Baby Ray's. So my whole upbringing was around food. And not only that, is like my grandma was an awesome cook on my mom's side. And I've always been interested in food. So I started cooking. My dad was teaching me how to flip omelets when I was like 7 years old. Wow. I started cooking in his restaurants when I was 14, doing some dishes and things like that. But, when I was in high school, I was working for my dad at his restaurants, and kind of throughout high school, that's what I did. That's where I learned to drink. That's where I learned to smoke. That's where I learned to eat. And, but when I got to like college age, I had to make a decision whether that's what I wanted to do. And I've kind of figured out that, my dad he's working nights and weekends and holidays. Maybe that's not the career path I want to go down. So I went to community college for a year. That was definitely not for me. So I ended up moving out west to Utah with some buddies, worked for an awesome chef out there, kind of realigned, like, this is what I really like to do. Then I went back to the Midwest and went to culinary school in Chicago, and I've been doing it ever since,
Dude, it's amazing. And when were you always heavy? Did your weight tick up later
No,
in life?
I was always heavy. I mean, there's, pictures of me and 7, 8 years old fishing, holding up the stringer with no shirt on. And I'm just a chunky little kid. And I've been heavy. But after I got married and then everybody else kind of stopped partying, I was still partying and eating and not really moving that much. That's when I really got heavy. The heaviest I saw the scale was 296, but I know I was heavier at some point. I just stopped going on the scale. I was too scared to.
I mean, you caught it before 300. That 300 can be a scary prospect. So like, I don't blame you.
I'm sure I was there right at 300. And then, something just told me. I mean, I remember vividly sitting on the edge of my bed, big belly, just everything hurt because of the alcoholism and everything else. I mean, I would wake up and my arms and legs would be numb. My back hurt. My feet always were swollen up. And I don't have to tell you, it's just a horrible feeling. I mean, that's everything in my back of my mind telling me you're killing yourself. And it's not just the booze and the drugs, it's the food too. So, it took a while, but when you're really into it, when you're that big, the weight comes off pretty quick in the beginning. I mean, just the water weight alone could be, a few dozen pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I lost, well, as an adult, the first time I was like, I want to diet, I need a plan. My first real diet, I lost weight so rapidly. But then like going back and forth of yo-yo dieting over 10 or 15 years, that water weight, it's such great motivation, especially with like keto. Like it comes off so quickly that I was kind of always chasing that, like, well, the weight's come back. Fuck this diet. I'm not on it anymore. And then it's like, I need to get back on a diet. Well, I lost a ton of weight right away on that one. I'll do that one again.
It's so attractive for sure. And I mean, I was in a mindset for years of just that carbs were bad. Like this was bad. And I'm really grateful to be on the path I am now. I just think it's so much healthier. I mean, I took a blood panel, and it was the first time that I remember that my cholesterol was like normal. And I know that's because I'm eating like less fatty food and just trying to eat clean, whole foods. And I've been on that program for about a year now. And it's been really, really good. I mean, it's still a struggle. Around the holidays, of course, you eat more than you're really looking to. But now I'm back on program, ready to go.
On the program. That's right. When you got sober, was there a factor? Like what made you get sober?
Pretty much I knew my health was failing. I mean, I was doing stupid shit while I was drinking. I was not there as a husband. Our business was doing bad. I mean, my life is 180 degrees different from when I was drunk at my drunkest and heaviest that it is today. I mean, not only my health is better, our business is better. My relationship with my wife and kids are better. And I mean, everything has changed. My financial situation, I mean, the whole 9 yards. I mean, and you know as much as I did how much that has to do with sobriety first. And I wouldn't be talking to you today if I wasn't sober. I can guarantee that, you know.
Yeah, it really, and I don't like to think of like anybody who uses drugs and alcohol recreationally as an addict, but for addicts, it really is, it does take you out of life. Like it is, being present for something with friends or at work. I just wasn't there. I was to some degree checked out. I showed up every day, but I wasn't really showing up in the way that I could otherwise.
100%. I mean, that's a big part of why our business is successful now, and it wasn't back then. I was showing up, and I was there every day, but you know, maybe 12, maybe one, maybe two, I would be drinking. And I don't
Yeah.
know how well I was hiding it or not, but I thought I was hiding it, and there's a liquor cage with every type of booze and beer and whatever you want, around the corner. And, in the hospitality industry, some of that is acceptable,
Right.
that just not to the extent I was doing it. And then whatever drugs on top of that. I mean, it's a total rabbit hole for an addict that you can't get out of unless you just cut it off completely. And like I said, grateful so much that I'm sober now, and I just need to stay on that path because of everything I've got going on now. There's no possible way, and I love it because I'm healthy now. I
Yeah.
feel good about it. I like the way I look for the most part. There's always stuff that I'm trying to work on, but no, it's definitely a better way to be for me, for sure.
Did you find at first it was difficult to apply some of the principles of sobriety to food, because like we're abstinent, and
Mhm.
and that is such like an impossibility with food that it creates a conundrum, because the
It
behaviors
is.
for me are very similar with I guess what I'm trying to solve with drugs and alcohol and with food. There's like a tension within me that can be soothed with those things. And now I really do need to seek other ways to alleviate that tension that are healthy and constructive rather than like like, I'll deal with this tomorrow. If I take this medicine right now, the tension will evaporate, but it's going to be worse tomorrow. The tension will compound.
Right. Yes. I mean, I find myself when I'm stressed out, I'll still eat. And my problem is now I can like stay away from the cheeseburger. Like I could stay away from like fast food and cookies and stuff, but then I'm grabbing equally as caloric items. Like I'll grab a handful of nuts and raisins, and like those things just packed with calories. And
Yeah.
but that's like kind of what like is my soother right now. Dark chocolate and cashews and raisins or almonds and all that type of stuff. It's like you could down 3,000 calories of stuff like that easy. But yeah, I still have to cope some way with that. I mean, Diet Coke can only get you so far sometimes.
Right. No, listen, dude, when I go out to dinner with my wife and she's having a glass of wine, a Diet Coke for me, that's a real big, like I feel like a human being, you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I belong at this table. It's
That's
so
awesome.
weird, because I don't really keep Diet Coke in my house,
Yeah.
and and I also don't really think there's anything wrong with it. I just know that I would be behaving with that Diet Coke in a way that
Yeah.
I would probably just be way over caffeinated.
Yeah. Oh, that's me right now. That's something I should probably work on a little bit. Hey,
Yeah,
I was going to ask you about you have 3 or 4 daughters.
four.
4 daughters. So I have 3 daughters that are
It's
probably
amazing.
a little bit younger than yours. How do you deal with that? They are already kind of like getting some weird activity with food and
Oh
like
yeah.
watching their weight, and how did you manage that situation? Do you give them advice? Do they want advice? Do some girls undereat and some girls overeat, or is it?
Yes. I've had both of those. I've experienced both of those things. And the way I was raised, I feel like my parents did such a wonderful job. My parents were amazing, amazing people. They didn't know what they were in for with me. I was
Mhm,
I was a mess. And
mhm,
when they first saw maybe signs of bad habits with food became restricted. and
mhm.
and then I just kind of started sneaking food. And when they'd put me on a diet, I would cheat at my diet every chance that I got. And so I got really accustomed to behaving or soothing myself in private, which then made it really like the transition to drug use was like a no-brainer for me. And so my life was so messy because of all of that. I kind of wanted to have this thing where I was like, I don't want to control any aspects of my kids in that way. And in
Yeah.
fact, I was raised in a very in a household where there was never alcohol. I think I saw my mom have a glass of champagne once on a New Year's Eve, but there was
Really?
never alcohol kept in the house. And it was really taboo. Drugs and alcohol were really taboo. My dad, he never once had a drink in my lifetime.
Wow.
And and so, you know, there was a lot of shame for me at like I had massively transgressed against the morals of my household when I was a kid and I started using drugs and alcohol and I guess with cheating with food too. I was also raised with a mom who was super into, you know, quote unquote health foods, and we didn't get. I felt that it was often, or you know, my perception of it as a kid was that we ate this way because of my weight. But the reality is, I think my mom was just like ahead of the curve with what has become a multi-billion-dollar industry of health food.
Right.
You know, she took vitamins. She shopped at the stores with off-brand weird foods that didn't taste good. You know what I mean? We never had Lucky Charms or Coke. Coke was never in my house. We had Hanson's natural soda as kids, and I loved it, but that was even super limited, you know?
Yeah.
And by the way, they didn't even have the diet version back then. When I was a little kid, it was all sweet sugar. Like but my mom didn't know, like, this is not better than Coke. This is still has the same calories as Coke.
Right.
You know, but so like there was a lot of weird ideas about food for me growing up. I just didn't want to put any of that on my kids. And I also didn't want to, you know, have them be too, I just didn't want to create these ideas around drugs and alcohol and food where it was taboo, because I was drawn to it because it was so restricted in my house.
Yes.
I didn't want to create, you know, and I worried because, like, you know, part of this stuff could be heritable, you know. First of all, genetics will play a role, but also just behaviors are heritable. And I don't know that we with any of that, but we kind of fell flat on our faces because one of our daughters got type 1 diabetes at 4 years old, and suddenly we had to be very restrictive of her carbohydrate intake, and we had to count everything, and you know, and this was also at the time that I was
exactly what you didn't want to
do. What we didn't want to do. But I'm also like, this is when I'm doing keto, thinking keto was the miraculous solve, and I'm like, maybe this kid should be on keto too, you know. And she's 4 years old, and it was just dumb. So, you know, once I like figured out like, oh my God, I'm going to stop moralizing food. And we did a pretty good job. Like, none of my kids show signs of alcoholism. They're three of them, two of them have graduated from college. One is in college and one is in her last year of high school. And they talk to us, you know, they do talk to us. Like, that has been kind of the thing. Is like, look, we're not going to say no. We're not going to ground you. We're not going to take stuff away if you're really just honest with us about stuff. So if you have questions about food and diet and all of this, like, I just want to talk to you about stuff you want to talk about. I don't want to pry. I don't want to enforce my positions on you. I'm really interested in you succeeding. And you know, they still have some weird ideas. I have one daughter who's at college and is struggling to do it now, because when she's like doesn't have my credit card to buy steaks with. She wants to be carnivore and is finding it difficult, away
Yeah.
at college where we're like, we bought you a meal plan. There are like 12 cafeterias you can eat at in this strange city that we're not familiar with.
Yeah.
No, sorry, you can't eat at a steakhouse 3 times a day every day. We're not going to pay for that, you know.
Oh
And
man.
and then she comes home. She was just home for the winter break, and she was like, "We're going to the supermarket. We're going to Lobel's to find butcher.
Ribeyes.
Where we're doing ribeye." Yeah, and and I'm like, I don't really think that's the best diet. I just
Yeah.
don't. And but I don't, but like she loves it. And so she can come home and be, eat steaks 3 times a day. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have to lose weight. So I don't even really know, she became obsessed with raw dairy. And I'm like, listen, we don't really eat a lot of dairy. My wife doesn't like
Mm-hmm.
milk. I'm allowed to have half and half in the house, but she's like really grossed out by milk.
That's
So
crazy.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But like that now suddenly a couple of years ago, one of my kids starts like finding raw dairy.
Is that the secret to something, raw dairy?
Apparently it's the secret to a bigger butt. And this
Okay.
kid wants a bigger butt, but to be very lean. And she saw somebody on TikTok and she's like, this is the way to go. And so,
Nice.
it's really, kids are so tricky. And, I think we want to be responsible for everything and say like we caused everything and it's all our genes or our behavior and the environment we put them in. And at the end of the day, I just think like these are human beings we're talking about, and they're gonna have their own ideas and be their own people at some point. And yeah, sure, when they're 2 years old, if we're only feeding them McDonald's, maybe that's not the greatest scheme
Right.
to put them through. But when we're talking about like teenagers and stuff, especially with girls, like I just, I didn't want to enforce anything on my kids. And, I think sometimes that was successful and sometimes it wasn't. Maybe we should have been a little bit firmer in some areas, but yeah, it's tough, man. Girls are tough.
Yeah. I know. I think it's so individual too. And one thing I've been thinking more about, I heard someone else talking about it, and it just made so much sense, is every individual's hunger drive is so different, where it's like, for me, I eat for so many reasons besides just being hungry.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if I see food, it's like ingrained to me to want to eat it. So it's like I always am kind of like pulling back and like restricting myself for things. And I feel like, I just see it in my own kids. One of my kids she could walk past chocolate cake and not think about it at all. The other two, they're for sure going to have some, like
Yeah.
no matter what, and it's just like, it's so different for so many people. That's why, ultimately, people ask me about what diet works. And I said, what works for you is the diet you should be on. If you can control your weight under a certain type of diet, then that's the one I would recommend, at least as a starting point.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm exactly there with you. I think about these. I wrote something for Substack about the advent of a dieter's utopia with the magic diet drugs that are out. And I lost the weight I needed to lose, and I found a structure for my life prior to these things existing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to lie. When I was a little kid, I used to dream that they would one day cure me, that there would be some cure. But then through, 20 plus years of dieting, I realized there's no cure. The cure is like my compulsions and my obsessions and the things I fixate on. And you would remove who I am by curing all of that. And to take away my ability to examine that, because when these things came out, I felt a pang of jealousy. I was like, oh my God, all these people are gonna just this is amazing.
That's
We're
like a
all
cheat code,
fixed.
you know?
Yeah, it's a cheat code. You're just not hungry. But that's not true even for me, because the majority of the time I wasn't eating because I was hungry.
That's what I'm thinking all the time in the back of my head is like, that's not when I'm going outside my plan is necessarily when I'm hungry. So it's other stuff going on there for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know that any of that's being addressed with these things. So for the people who just have metabolism, who are just experiencing hunger that is causing them to overeat and store fat, this is a wonderful hallelujah type moment, and I am so happy for these people. But for folks like me, who, it really isn't about that.
Right.
I think that I would be doing myself a disservice, because suddenly all these things that I'm examining, that I'm working on, that I'm trying to become a better version of myself on a daily basis, a better father, husband, brother, coworker, employer, all of these things. If I don't need to do that, and there's no motivation to work on it, because I can't overeat, because I'm when I get to whatever point, I'm now overly full, and I'm not able to satisfy any of that with food, but I'm also not working on it. I don't know. I'm just kind of glad now. At first I was jealous and I was mad. Like these fucking people waited until after I'd kind of figured this out to invent these drugs.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of like, no, I'm glad. I'm glad for all the things I struggled with, because I feel like I'm better off because of it.
I mean, that's the way I think about a lot of things in life. It's the things that the challenges that you get through allow you to move forward and progress in those areas. And it's tough. I hate to do this to you, but I got to ask you another question. It's something that you've talked about before, and it's something that I'm very highly considering.
Okay.
After losing all the weight, and I could tell, even if I lose the other, whatever, could be 10 or 15 pounds of fat, I know there's going to be issues with my abdomen that I'm not going to be happy with, and talking about skin removal surgery.
Yeah.
How do you walk people through that, and whether that's right for them, or, what's your experience been with that?
Well, listen, I went through years just sure that I was going to lose the skin. And then when I never did, then I went into like red light therapy and mineral wraps, and there was a type of massage that I was getting where it was supposed to like detach something and make it able for but all BS, total BS. The skin is not going away without surgical intervention. If you have stretched it to the point of it can't stretch anymore, basically, and kept it there for a long enough amount of time, it's not going away. Yeah. And so, like, there's a number of factors to consider. Like, there was a point where where the skin was such a bummer to me that I basically was like, well, I'd rather be fat than have this. This is like, I was so unhappy with it that I was like, I'd rather be fat. Now it's not cheap. Insurance doesn't really cover it. Maybe they cover some aspects of it now. When I got skin removal surgery, they didn't cover it at all. And so, I know there's a guy, John Cloud, who's on Instagram. His Instagram handle is obese to beast. He has a ton of loose skin.
Oh yeah.
And he's happy with it. And anybody who's happy with their body, I'm happy for
sure.
You know what I mean? And so
it's hard to be happy with your body all the time. So that's more power to him.
I had skin surgery. I'm very rarely, occasionally I'll see a picture and I'll go, that's the best picture of me, but I'm still not doing cartwheels about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still hypercritical of myself. And so the skin was, so devastating to me that I eventually, after talking to dermatologists and coming to really know that the skin wasn't going away, we decided to go and see a plastic surgeon. I wish I had been in a better place mentally. I was still in the midst of going up and down with my weight. I hadn't at that point had a year or two of sustained weight loss. I did it all wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
so walking somebody through it, if they're really thinking about getting skin removal, I would just say, like, spend some time at the weight you want to be at before
Mm-hmm.
you have the surgery, because if there's any tenuousness with the weight you're at, then you got to understand that coming out of skin removal surgery, you're sedentary for a long time.
Right.
You're not moving around a lot. And my cope was eat. And so
Jeez.
you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I was a ball of anxiety, and it was just not, it wasn't the circumstances that it would be today. Now today I still have tons of loose skin, but my experience with skin removal surgery were so not great that I'm not doing another
You're
one. Like
signed up.
I'm done. Like I'm not doing that again. And I could have a much better body. I could have some of the scars that I also fell and tore my side open while I was recovering
Yikes.
because I was so anxious. I was trying to move around long before I should have been. So like there's a lot to consider when going into that. But like I'm neither like super pro it or super against it. All I'll relate is my experience and say,
Right.
like, I so thoroughly understand having that surgery done. If you carried some weight for a long period of time and then worked very hard to get it off, and
Mm-hmm.
there's still this kind of remnant of it and this constant reminder of it, it's haunting. It's really,
Yeah.
really hard. That was my experience. It doesn't have to be. It's not John Cloud's.
Right.
He does not have that experience, and so good for him. But I know from numerous people that share that experience that it is like a relief to not have the folds of skin there
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. It's definitely a tough situation. It's like a bittersweet kind of to the max when you've gone through all the work and trouble and mental anguish about dieting and working out. And yeah, I don't know. You know, one,
Are you leaning one way or the other?
I mean, I've been to two consultations. Like I want
Okay.
to have it done, but
Yeah.
I'm like scared to pull the trigger
Yeah.
because of the inactivity and I mean, getting cut because they want to do all the way around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I did. Yeah.
and it just freaks me out. My
Well,
wife is
yeah.
supportive, and I could do it. I financially I could do it. My wife is supportive. I'm like in my mind, I'm like I didn't earn it enough yet. I have to
Right.
get like skinny enough and see my abs, and then like I gotta like be more or less stage ready, and then I can get it done.
Well, okay. Let's talk about that though, because
You know.
stage ready, here's my experience with stage ready. Stage ready lasts for like 4 hours. For real.
Right.
I got
Um,
stage ready with Jared Feather.
that guy is
I mean, he's basically, he always looks stage ready to me, even though he'll
I
say
mean,
like, I'm
his
fluffy
recent
right now.
pictures on Instagram, he looks like an absolute superhero.
He really does. His proportions are, he is a genetic freak. It's insane.
It's amazing.
I had a very similar relationship with him that you have with Ian for,
Hmm.
God, we probably worked together for 6 or 8 months. And it
Hmm.
was literally just to take a photo. And he started me off getting onto, like, I did a round of maintenance with him.
Hmm.
And then I basically was cutting, and then the cut got disrupted because of my work. I had to go work and it got disrupted. And so I went back onto maintenance, and then I came back and did a proper cut.
Yep.
And I was so lean for 10 minutes or exactly 10 minutes. And then you're like, and by the way, it's really hard getting that lean. Like, you know, you've done some of these really hard, low calorie diets.
Yeah.
And basically, like, when we're thinking about the bodybuilder diets, they're not severe. It's not really that you're never walking around lightheaded. Getting that lean, I was lightheaded. And then the last week or two, where he started messing with my salt and the amount of water I was drinking, just to get every last bit of excess water out of me, was so thoroughly miserable. So it's like, you do all this work and you get that. And like, I'm not trying to talk you out of abs. That's not the point of what I'm saying. Go get your abs. I'm trying to say, like, you've lost 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? Or more.
Yeah.
More.
But,
okay. So you've lost over 100 pounds. You're talking about having to lose 10 more pounds. And those 10 get you onto stage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that everything you just said about needing to do that is all bullshit. Like, you don't need to do that in order, because also you don't live on the stage. Jared Feather doesn't live on the stage. Ian doesn't live on the stage. Bodybuilders don't live on the stage. And they're also all on, all enhanced
special stuff.
Right. Yeah. Which is like, you know, like, I just, like, listen, pat yourself on the back, dude. You got 10 pounds to lose. You've lost over 100 pounds. Get your skin surgery. I'm not saying don't get your abs, and maybe you can do that beforehand, but like the abs, my abs wouldn't have been visible or as visible as they eventually were had I not gotten skin surgery. Now, I lost more weight than you. I had more excess skin.
Sure.
But that it's all gonna complement everything else. If it's something you want to do, I completely understand feeling like, I think the logical thing to think about is like, am I at a good spot? Your 10 pounds that you're going to lose, I don't know that that's where you're going to lose and stay there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a lot to think about. And I don't know, it's one of those things, the insecurities, and, you know, I feel the same way about, you know, you probably had some of that too when you're an actor. Like, it's like the, what's it called? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
When you're imposter syndrome, you know, it's like, I mean, I feel that's, you know, part of the mental problem that I'm having with this situation right now, you know?
Well, dude, I think, you know, for guys like us, it's always going to feel that way. You were a chunky kid. I was a chunky kid. We was overweight my whole life. You know, I'm at 15% body fat today and still feel morbidly obese. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that doesn't really go away. You just find tools where you can spot stuff like that, see it for what it is, and move on. Go like, okay, that's irrational. That's the voice that's trying to get me to drink. That's the voice that's trying to get me to go eat McDonald's, because McDonald's that's the voice saying, like, the real you know, wants to go score an 8-ball and do stuff that would be offensive to your wife and kids. That's the real you. And that's why you feel this shame. And that's why you're the imposter. And it's like, look, there's many versions of me in there. I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy that's doing drugs and eating to the point of sickness. I don't like him. I much prefer who I'm working towards today. And so, like, if there's a voice in my head saying that's phony, you're phony, okay, but he's a hell of a lot better than you, the other guy, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, that's so true. And I feel like it's a constant, like you said, it's something we have to live with the rest of our lives. And that's, part of the program and part of just dealing with it. But, there could be a lot of other worse things to deal with too,
That's right.
And it's something that keeps you strong. And, I like who I am today. And like you said it perfect, who you're trying to be. And that's the important part for sure.
That's right. And that's all that matters. And, I think it's really important for guys like us, really important to sometimes take a minute, because I think guys like us are the opposite of narcissists, whatever that is, like,
Yeah.
and to have a moment where we give some space to acknowledging that we're doing pretty good, that we're, it's almost like a check me out thing. Like, oh my gosh, check me out. I've done something that I set out to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Those I find to be super helpful, because otherwise, like, what's the point? Like, we have all these people that care very much for us, and we're going to sit here and shit on ourselves and say, like, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve that. Well, the guy that all these people care about, we're just tarnishing their affection. Like, it almost becomes unfair at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's an interesting way to think about it. I mean, when you were talking about how, guys like us feel like we don't deserve it sometimes. And have you ever had the feeling of like you turn and look in the mirror and you're going to be back to like 400 or 500 pounds again?
All the time.
I feel like, and I tried to tell that to my wife and explain it to her, that I'm going to see fat Duce. When I turn around and look in that mirror, it's in your head. And she like could not wrap her head around it. She was like, not to make it sound woe is me, but she's like, that is sad. That's like, I feel bad for you, but it is just a scary thing. Going through those transformations and just the way it is, I guess.
It's awful, but I also have laser vision to areas of my body that I'm still unhappy with, that I'm still like, I need to work out and target that muscle group more. That muscle's undeveloped. Or like, why do I carry more excess fat in my back? You know what I mean? Like, I wish I had a more defined back. And it's just madness, dude. It's totally madness. You have lost 100 pounds. Those 10 pounds that you want to lose, that are probably not permanent. Like, if we think about, like, I understand you talking about maintenance, it creeps up. I totally get it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're talking about the rest of your life. We're talking about forever, your forever plan. Maybe you'll lose 10 pounds and get to some place where that's your normal, but you're not going to do that in a cut, in like a stage prep cut. That's not, Ian's going to start messing with your water in a month and a half. He's going to start messing with your salt, and suddenly it's going to be water weight. And then you're going to have one meal after your photo shoot. After you send me a picture standing in front of a brisket with abs, you're going to have one meal. And you're maybe your abs don't disappear, but you're going to get on the scale and have gained like 10 pounds. Like, that's just the way sodium and water works. Sorry. And then it's like, well, is it a failure? I remember being with Jared, taking my picture. I weighed in that morning and I was like, oh my God, I'm light as a feather. I could go run a marathon. I can't believe how light I am. And I took my picture. And at the thing, Jared makes these bars that are like supposed to get glycogen into your muscles as fast as possible. And I'm eating these bars and drinking this drink he's given me, which is like a little bit of salt and a little bit of this, but not getting
your veins and all that.
Yeah. And I'm doing push-ups and working out with bands, and I'm trying, all of that. And I got home and I was like, I wonder what that did. And I got back on the scale, 9 pounds. 9 pounds. And I hadn't even eaten a meal at that point. I
Oh
had
my
just had
gosh.
some water and eaten these bars to get like a pump, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, when we get down to our last 10 pounds, you know, pat yourself on the back. If you want to get that surgery, get that surgery. I wouldn't do it right now. I would
Yeah.
I would do what you're doing. I don't want to derail that. But I also
Right.
think, like, we have to be realistic about this stuff at some point. I have a buddy who has lost 200 pounds,
Hmm.
and he says to me that he wants to start resistance training, but he has 4 pounds left to lose. And I'm like, dude, it really doesn't fucking matter at all. Those 4 pounds are completely irrelevant. You've
Yeah.
lost 196 pounds and you want to lose four more before you start. It like,
That
no,
doesn't. Yeah.
we're going to be bad. Like those 4 pounds or 10 pounds, that 10 pounds could be a big Thanksgiving meal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it really, so like, I'm not trying to talk you out of or into anything. I'm just saying, like, you have accomplished something tremendous. You have had massive weight loss.
Hmm.
If you get yourself into the right headspace, and I don't think the right headspace is feeling imposter syndrome. I really don't. I
Hmm.
think you got to get really comfortable and spend some time at the weight and go like, okay, I can maintain this, and really walk yourselves through what it's going to be like, because it is going to be a lot of stillness
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
everything that might come up for you in that. And there's also like, I'm not gonna lie, when I the last surgery I had was to repair a ruptured bicep, and I had to do it and go in and tell the anesthesiologist, like, you cannot give me opiates. And he was like, well, we always do opiates once you're in and I said, you cannot give me
Yeah.
opiates. I will wake up and it will be the only thing I think about for the next 4 months. You cannot give me opiates. So they came up with some concoction of ketamine, and I said, I'm also going to wake up and be in pain and groggy and demand painkillers. You can't give them to me.
Yeah.
You have to sign something saying you won't give them to me. When I had skin removal surgery, I hadn't gotten into this spot of like understanding that, like, I'm going to be in severe pain and I have to figure out another way to deal with that. Because I also
Hmm.
found, for me, the painkillers don't actually kill the pain. They just like make me feel good in another way and take my
Make you
mind
want
off.
more painkillers. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, that's another thing. Like, are you okay with that? How are you going to deal with that? It
Yeah,
is pain.
that's a big consideration because I mean that's what really kind of messed me up in my addiction. I broke my leg when I was still drinking. Of course, I was drunk when I broke my leg, and then that's what I went down a path for years where I needed pills and booze and
Yeah.
weed and cigarettes, you know, and
Yeah.
it was painkillers are no joke for sure.
No.
That's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, and so here's the magical concoction that they have waiting for you when you come out of surgery. You're going to sit for 6 weeks. You're not going to do anything. And we're going to give you prescriptions for anything you want, cuz you've just had a massive surgery. And like, that is a deadly scenario for me. And I was not prepared for that at all. Now, today I could get prepared for that. I've had a
Hmm.
surgery and not had pain medicine, and I've learned that pain like that is temporary, and if I
Right.
get through it, it passes, and like, that's how I deal with it. But if that's a factor for you, going into it without thinking about that stuff could be dangerous. That's all. I would
Yeah.
just like really walk through everything. Like, you're going to wake up and you're
Yeah.
going to be in pain, and there's going to be a doctor sitting there with a syringe, like, let me load you up. And what's
Yeah.
that? How is that going to play on your psyche being a sober person, And like, I know plenty of sober people who've had surgery, have painkillers, and it's okay. It doesn't turn
Sure.
into a big problem, but it was a big problem for me,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
Man.
Duce, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. I'm so happy for you, and I cannot wait to see what you cook next.
No, that's awesome. Ethan, thank you so much. I appreciate the time.